and mist and fog forming in the south. Overnight lows of 11 to 15 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
This is News Talk.
Hello and welcome to Monday's Off the Ball. It is Eoin here with you right the way through until 10 o'clock this evening. And what a show we have for you this morning, or this afternoon, this evening I should say. I'm getting mixed up between my times here. We're kicking things off with a book interview with Bernard Brogan. The one and only Bernard Brogan will be in for a few interviews this week, actually talking about a number of different subjects. There are some tasty subjects coming up today with Ger, who he's been chatting to earlier on today. We're going to be talking about the Kerry and Dublin rivalry, about Bernard Brogan's first opportunity in the Dublin camp. That's all coming up in today's edition of the Bernard Brogan saga. His new book is called The Hill, by the way. It's absolutely brilliant. And then we've got a fairly packed weekend of sport to sift through as well. We've got Monday Night Rugby in the company of Keith Wood and Rory O'Connor, of course, looking back on that Pro 14 final, a huge win for Leinster. And Mark Lawrenson will be with us in the football show to sift through the wreckage of a crazy opening weekend of the Premier League. It is ongoing at the moment, 2 games this evening as well in the Premier League. And Adam Pope of BBC Leeds is also going to be with us to look back on Marcelo Bielsa's introduction to the Premier League. As ever, you can get in touch with us by dropping us a text using the number 53106. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. Richie McCormack, a very good evening to you. It is certainly evening time. How are you getting on?
Young Owen, how are you?
Not too bad at all. Ronan Mullen, what's the crack?
All's well, Owen. How are you?
All good, all good. So, Ronan, we'll start with you. How many hours did you spend not watching sport this weekend?
Oh, it was a difficult one, Owen. I'm not going to lie. It was the first multi-screen evening of the lockdown, or post-lockdown, I'm fairly sure, where I had NBA, NFL, keeping an eye on the GA finals, and then obviously the Premier League was back, and it was hard to keep across everything. But I think I just about managed it. And then the times when I wasn't watching sport, I was probably thinking about sport, Owen, thinking about how am I going to balance all of this and what am I going to prioritise. But it certainly lived up to the billing. I think we got our money's worth over the weekend.
Have we just got to the point this year where we went so long without it that we actually don't know what to do when it's all back, and this gluttony, our system just can't really handle it, Richie?
Yeah, it almost felt like there was too much at the weekend, especially when last night when you started lumping in the NFL with the men's fun in the US Open. It all seemed as if it was a bit much. You could kind of parse things out. The Premier League was organised in such a way at the weekend that it was game and then another game, then another game. It wasn't as if there was loads on at the one time and you're trying to keep track of 3 or 4 at once. And then the rugby was on in the evening as well, kind of separate from everything too. But I think last night was taking the piss, if we're being quite honest about it. Like, so somebody needs to have a word somewhere, space these things out. It's like when you've gone off sugar for the entirety of Lent, and then you decide to break that by necking a 2-litre bottle of Coke straight away, and you're expected to cope with that afterwards and be fine. And it's not on. It's not going to happen. So I think maybe we might have to go for some kind of Diet Cola situation, or maybe just some kind of sparkling water from here on in.
Yeah, for sure. We need a world governing body to sort of help us alleviate what's been happening to our senses. Richie, you were in the hot seat for yesterday's show. It was our live and exclusive national radio commentary of Spurs against Everton. A match that did absolutely nothing for anybody that was hoping for the Seamus Coleman versus Matt Doherty argument to go away.
No, it didn't. I thought it was a really good game. I guess because West Brom Leicester was a bit of a letdown beforehand. West Brom are going to struggle this season. I think you can probably base that on the 90 minutes that we saw yesterday. And Leicester took advantage of that in the second half particularly. But there was a real kind of toe-to-toe contest about yesterday. And Coleman defensively was superb, I thought, against, at times a rather anemic Spurs attack, but he did what was exactly asked of him. From a Doherty point of view, he had that big chance to score, and I don't think he's been helped by the nonsense that Jose Mourinho came out with afterwards. That I get what Mourinho was trying to say. It wasn't necessarily a criticism of Doherty, rather a criticism of the way the season's been organised for Spurs and others, that it's not helping in terms of fitness levels.
Yeah.
But you don't name names. And especially you don't name the guy you've just paid 15 million quid for, who missed a chance to score a goal, because that has every, chance to wreck his confidence, especially coming off the back of 2, underwhelming international performances last week. But Mourinho's going to Mourinho.
For sure. I think that if you name check Matt Doherty, it's kind of criticism of him if you pick out a player for what seems to be this overarching frustration that you have with the fact that this season is going to feature a lot of people who aren't match fit at the start of it. I think if you name check somebody in that, you're making it a little bit more than just an overall problem. You're kind of pointing the finger at Matt Doherty, who I thought was one of the least deserving of criticism after yesterday's performance.
Yeah, like the thing about it is Doherty probably should be, and I would wager that he actually is, one of the fittest members of that squad. You just have to look at how Wolves are performing at the moment to see how that extended run in the Europa League has actually stood to them. Like, it might knacker them out towards the end of the season, but we'll see. But Doherty, after playing 2 international games, after going deep into the season with Wolves in Germany in the Europa League, like I'd imagine he's probably fine. He's just probably getting acclimatized to his surroundings. He wasn't necessarily being fed the type of balls that he was used to being fed while at Wolves because he's still getting used to his new teammates. But you don't go singling out players after the first game. And it's just, I guess, indicative of Jose Mourinho's already trying to find literally any excuse he can for the disappointing season that will come Spurs' way this year and this season. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's pretty sad to see this is what he's reduced to one game into the season. Yeah, just for anyone who didn't see the quotes, he said he is normally in incredible condition. Today he was not Matt Doherty like he normally is. I couldn't expect him to be sharp, intense, agile, but I was expecting much more individually and collectively. Who won the battle of the right backs for you yesterday, Ronan?
I think you'd have to say Seamus Coleman. But I don't know, I actually took those comments as a bit of a defence of Matt Doherty, because I'm sure, and it was actually the case in the post-match analysis where the lads were singling him out and saying substituted early in the game, and maybe that was a pointer that Mourinho was dissatisfied. But I think he was actually saying to those quotes you were reading out that we expect a lot more from Matt Doherty, and we're expecting him when he gets up to full sharpness, he's going to deliver on his promise. And I think actually Mourinho went to bat for him a little bit there, but there's certain other players he noticeably didn't, like Dele Alli was unceremoniously taken off at half time. One of the stars of the Spurs documentary, Owen Dele Alli, and I have to say I've been suckered in by the Amazon documentary. If I could have put 4 Spurs players in my fantasy football team, I probably would have done it. I thought they were all set for a title charge this season, but they were I think anemic was the word Richie used, and that was kind of spot on. Once they went 1-0 down, there was just nothing there. But yeah, we should take the positive. Seamus Coleman was outstanding. And Matt Doherty had his moments as well. Obviously, almost open scoring, made a couple of those surging runs. It's obviously a new position for him to adjust to. But I've always been of the opinion that given they're probably 2 of our top 5 players easily, that we have to find a way to get them both in the team, because this isn't. And I see this brought up that in the 90s we had a plethora of right backs, and we had to pick one. We just had to pick one. But that's because we had so much quality elsewhere in the pitch. Whereas I think you could easily find positions for Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty elsewhere in the pitch where they could affect the game in a positive manner in ways that there probably aren't players of similar quality in the Irish setup. So I think Stephen Kenny's obviously brewing over it and has been for the last week, if not the last few months. So I think ultimately we should try and find a spot for both of them.
For sure. Jose said afterwards as well yesterday that he's happy that Amazon aren't following him around all this season as well. So kind of in a roundabout way.
No, he's
them.
not. No, he's not. That man wants a camera on him 24/7. You just have to look at the ads he's doing at the minute as well. That man craves that kind of publicity, and he is good. Like, if he'd be one of those, if he wasn't a manager, he'd be one of those people on Twitter who records themselves doing funny things or pranking members of the public just to try and get a laugh out of people. He has decided that he is important and he is funny, and therefore must show the rest of the world. And he's gutted there's no Amazon documentary this season. We got a text in here from Niall saying, Owen, you went full Truman Show there. Good afternoon, good evening and good night. Start at the bottom and rise up is what I say. And Spud has been in touch to say, nice of Bernard Brogan to name his book after Henman Hill. Didn't realise he was a massive tennis fan. So Bernard Brogan in conversation with Gerard coming your way in about 15 minutes time. You are listening to the Newsround with thanks to Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. What is happening, Richie? 9 minutes into the second half of Bramall Lane, the match we alluded to there, the first of this evening's 2 games in the Premier League. It's currently Sheffield United 0, Wolves 2. Raul Jimenez and Roman Saiz scored the Wolves goals, both inside the first 6 minutes this evening. There's an 8:15 start to tonight's other game. Brighton entertaining Chelsea. Timo Werner and Kai Havertz could make their Chelsea debuts tonight. Frank Lampard's side beginning their life on the English South Coast in this new season. Fellow news signings Hakim Ziyech, Thiago Silva and Ben Chilwell all missed the trip to the Amex, and the Chelsea boss doesn't feel they're under any extra pressure despite their big spending.
Well, I think the pressure on me to do better than last season should be standard, regardless of anything that comes with the territory of this job. I don't want to talk about it as us making statements. I understand that it's the players that were brought in will obviously get a lot of talk about them, because when you make those sort of moves with the type of player we're talking about, it becomes a very good news story. But for me, it was more about, I think last year we were very happy to achieve the Champions League positions, as we did. We fought hard for that. We know we'd been on a transfer ban from the year before, and the fact that we are very joined up in what the business that we wanted to do to try and improve the team. I think we've done it hopefully in a good way, and we should be excited.
We will bring you that Chelsea team news in the next few minutes, I'm sure. This is one of those weird situations where, you know, every transfer window, fans are tweeting insiders, tweeting players, tweeting managers saying, sign this player, sign this player, sign this player. Chelsea have got all those wishes this summer, all those names that you could pluck out of thin air that they should sign, they've done it. So I'm not sure, Richie, is that a way you can twist into Chelsea positively tonight, or is it a situation where it just simply has to take a few months for them to gel?
It will take a few months from the gel, especially seeing as the majority of those signings have come up front. Ben Chilwell, you would imagine, given the position he's been asked to play, won't be that different to what he's done for Leicester over the course of the last 2 seasons. Thiago Silva's competent enough and experienced enough to slot in a full-back, centre back. But it is those signings up front that, you know, they need to get the right service from midfield. So he needs to find the right combination in midfield to feed Havertz, to feed Werner. So that's the interesting thing that he has to kind of manage. I think the midfield composition for Chelsea is actually going to be the trickiest thing that Frank Lampard will have to do, never mind trying to see who he picks in the front three up front. Like he needs, you know, to find the right people to feed them balls, whether Kante fits into that, Kovacic, like Mason Mount, whether he's still in the reckoning, and young Billy Gilmore too, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. He kind of has a lot of a certain level of midfielder. It's whether or not he has the quality to provide up front is another story. They're an interesting watch. There's a lot of explaining away their spending I've seen over the last couple of days. Obviously, the transfer ban that they had last year is one of them, but others have pointed out that they haven't necessarily spent excessively when you factor in what they made from transfers coming in, particularly the money from Eden Hazard that they weren't effectively been able to spend. So they've actually not been frugal, but they've spent within their means. Their means just happen to be a lot more at the moment, thanks to not being able to spend last year.
That's an interesting point. And Ronan, my mind immediately goes to the Gareth Bale money that Tottenham Hotspur perhaps didn't spend that well. I think we can immediately chalk down this as a better transfer window for Chelsea than that one was for Spurs. What, in your view, is their ceiling this year? Like, does the ceiling now lower after Liverpool perhaps showing a few frailties on Saturday night?
I think it does, and like I was making this point before, that I expected Liverpool and Man City to have sort of reset the bar in a way that maybe Mourinho's first Chelsea team did, where you can't really afford to be dropping points on a regular basis. But I think it won't quite be like that this season, just because it's so dissimilar to any other season, and you know it's only normal that, given the games coming thick and fast, that teams will slip up. And Chelsea, given the depth of their squad, as you lads have just reeled off, like they have options that most other teams don't. But the only thing is, and it's been well worn at this stage, but Lampard had a bit of a honeymoon period last season, and I don't know what the expectancy is at a team level, but at a boardroom level, having splashed all this money, I think they will be thinking, if top four was what they achieved last year, they should at least be achieving more than that, and that would equate to a title challenge by all accounts. And Kai Havertz is probably the one deal. Like, you look at their business and it all looks clever, but I think Kai Havertz, it kind of points to this window of opportunity that they've managed to avail of, because I think in any normal summer, quote unquote, I don't think Chelsea would have been in the running for this player, because he's probably the highest touted young prospect from the Bundesliga. And, you know, all due respect to Chelsea, I think the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich in a normal year would have been, you know, pursuing this type of player, and they're just not in a position to do it. So Chelsea have seized on that opportunity in a way that Manchester United have sort of been lagging on Jadon Sancho, and it has actually been flagged up by a number of journalists on that beat, that United kind of sense that if they don't get Sancho this summer, by the time next summer rolls around, those clubs that I just mentioned will be sniffing around him. So much like Chelsea and Havertz, I think United sort of have to pounce on Sancho right about now.
For sure. Do we have the Chelsea team, Richie?
Yeah, it's just dropped. Yeah, Kepa Arrizabalaga starts a goal for them. Reece James, Andreas Christensen, Kurt Zouma and Marcus Alonso are across a back four. An interesting looking midfield there. We've got Jorginho, who's captain for tonight, and N'Golo Kante and Mason Mount, with Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Kai Havertz in support, it seems, of Timo Werner. No Ben Chilwell, Thiago Silva tonight. They're both injured and waiting to return to full fitness. So Ruben Loftus-Cheek very much getting his chance to shine this evening against Brighton at the Amex.
For sure, and it'll take a couple of weeks, I guess, for all those names to come to full fitness to get into the squad until we see what Frank Lampard's first choice team is going to be. It's an 8:15 kickoff at the Amex, as Richie mentioned. Leinster next, Richie.
Yeah, Tyke Furlong remains a doubt for their Heineken Champions Cup quarter-final with Saracens. The prop still hasn't played since rugby's resumption, due to a back injury. Dan Levy will also be assessed as the week goes on, but Fergus McFadden has resumed full training following a calf injury, and he's in contention to face the defending champions. Meanwhile, Saracens head coach Mark McCall has suggested that loosehead Mako Vunipola will be fit to face the Blues after he missed recent Premiership rounds with a back spasm. Leinster assistant coach Robin McBride says a massive improvement is required this weekend, despite the comfortable nature of their winning margin against Ulster.
Yeah, we're going to have to be 10 times better, to be honest, in certain areas, especially the line-out. First half, we didn't function, so we'll have to spend, a little bit of time focusing on what went wrong there and come up with the answers and learn from that lesson, really. So, in credit to Ulster, they did put us under a little bit of pressure, but a lot of it was down to our own inaccuracies. So, I've got to put my hand up there and make sure that, all the players are seeing the same pictures in their own minds as I'm seeing in mine. So, I thought the calling was pretty good, but our execution let us down. That's one area in particular, and, some other stuff as well. But we've had a good day's prep today. Turned the page pretty quickly because we need to do that because they're a quality team. They're coming here with a point to prove, and we're going to have to be, as I said, 10 times better than what we were against Ulster.
A big departure in Munster as well, Richie.
Yeah, they've confirmed that their head of athletic performance is leaving at the end of October. The native New Yorker joined the province in May of 2018, but is returning home for personal reasons. Scotty Scheffler will miss golf's US Open next week after testing positive for COVID-19. His place at the second major of the year at Winged Foot Grace, who himself missed the PGA Championship after contracting the coronavirus. And the FIA are looking into whether Lewis Hamilton broke their rules at yesterday's Tuscan Grand Prix. The Formula One world champion wore a t-shirt with the message, "Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor," on the podium. Ms. Taylor was shot and killed in her own home by 3 plainclothes police officers in Kentucky back in March. It's unclear what FIA statute Hamilton may have broken, but they say they're taking it under consideration. And Hamilton explained his wearing of the t-shirt after yesterday's race.
It took me a long time to get that shirt, and I've been wanting to wear that and bring awareness to the fact that, if there's people that have been killed on the street, and there's someone who got killed in their own house, and they're in the wrong house, and those guys are still walking free, and we can't rest. We can't. We have to continue to raise awareness of it with it, and Naomi's been doing amazing, so huge congratulations to her, and I think she's an incredible inspiration with what she's done with her platform. So I think we just have to continue to push on the issue.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton there speaking at the weekend. Right, we've got a huge show coming your way this Thursday. We've teamed up with Cadbury FC to bring you some massive football interviews over the next few weeks. On Thursday, we're sitting down with Ian Wright and Saul Campbell, and you'll be able to enjoy the whole thing on OTB's social channels and on OTB Sports Radio. Check out cadburyfc.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. That is about our lot on the news round this evening. Richie, of course, you're double jobbing tonight. If you haven't got enough of Richie McCormack here, you can catch him at 10 o'clock where he's covering for Tom Dunn. And a quick one for you, Ronan. We've got a text in here from Graham saying, "Oh, how I'm enjoying Tom Brady bombing in Tampa Bay. Could not have happened to a nicer lad. Hopefully there's no fond farewell for one of the whiniest sporting superstars around." That is in from Graham. Very quickly, out of 10, his performance last night?
Oh, like a medium 5, Owen, at best. 5 out of 10.
Great stuff. Ronan Mullen and Richie McCormack with us on the news round. We are taking a quick break. Bernard Brogan is up next.
The news round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.